wants to get in on the podcast. I don't know how that happened just then, but Alexa, stop. All right, we're good. What's happening, Gavin?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Oh boy, Alexa, stop. What a way to start a podcast. My apologies.
No worries,
What's
man.
going on, man? Nice and early for you over there.
I know, yeah. First thing. You at home now, as I can see?
Yeah. I actually didn't go into the office today. I flew back from Perth this morning. This morning Perth time, but at the moment with daylight savings, there's a 3-hour time difference. So by the time I got back to Adelaide, it was like mid-afternoon. So I was just like, no, I'm just going to work from home. So I've been working from home, and I knew I had you coming up this evening. So
Awesome.
it's worked nicely.
Thank you very, very, very much, obviously, for coming on. I've done the introduction already. I was having problems with the audio. That's why I was about 5 minutes late. Apologies for that.
That's all good.
Obviously, the podcast is based around myself. It's a selfish podcast. I'm just trying to tap into the minds of the best people in the business. I can note take. I can improve as a person. So while I'm putting it on a podcast, everyone else can listen to it, and people can tap into it, learn life habits, be happy, and grow as a person. So introduction to yourself, where you started, where you are now, really. I know it'll be a long story, but it's just maybe it's a synopsis.
Yeah, that's easy. Oh, you want me to start now?
Yeah, sorry, mate. So yeah, go ahead.
Are we like live on the podcast at the moment, or like are you going to edit, or like?
No, I'm going to edit it. Yeah, so it'll be a Zoom. It's a Zoom call, but I'm recording it all. Then I'll edit.
Okay, and then you just cut in and out. So are we like? Is this like podcast material at this point, or are we just still having a chat?
It'll be podcast material.
Okay. All right.
To be honest, mate, the editing, I'm going to outsource the editing. I don't fully know what how they do it and things like that. So
yeah. Well, most like guest podcasts that I do are not edited. They just, I think they're not edited. They're just like recorded, and that's, the whole thing goes live. So it probably cuts your work down not having to edit. Just kind of take it as it is, sort of thing. But it's up to you, man. It's your podcast, of course.
No, I'll go for it. I don't mind it. I like the rawness of it.
Yeah. All right. So where would you like me to begin?
Let's go introduction, where you started, how you got into business and life, really. How you end up in Australia as well.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so my name's Joesph Mencel. I do a few things in the fitness industry. I run a company called Massive Joe's, which is one of the biggest retailers of sports supplements in the Australian marketplace. And the retail side of the business, we do a couple of things. The website, of course, which is arguably, who's number one, who's number two, and who's number three, and whatnot. But arguably, definitely one of the biggest fitness websites in the country. And then we do bricks and mortar retail as well. So pre-pandemic, I was operating 10 bricks and mortar retail stores. Post-pandemic, we're down to 8, and we'll probably, I would imagine we'll probably lose another 1 or 2 because of the effects of the pandemic over here in Australia, which is not great, but it is what it is. It's just another business challenge. And then I do, in the Massive Joe's business as well, we do a couple of other things. So we do importation, we do distribution, we run an affiliate program, we run Massive Joe's challenges, which are transformation challenges, a whole bunch of things, but primarily anchored in supplementation, and the kind of arms, I guess, kind of branch out to, wholesale, retail challenges, so on and so forth. I also run an apparel company called TMJ Apparel. The basis for the name TMJ was Team Massive Joe. So it started off as a Massive Joe clothing brand, and has now kind of grown into its own fitness apparel brand, so TMJ Apparel. And as you can see, I'm rapping all the time. Then I do also in the fitness industry. So I myself am an IFBB men's physique pro. So I compete myself in the men's physique division in the IFBB on the pro circuit. And then I run amateur shows in the IFBB Pro League. So it's called the Pro League, but it's the amateur arm of the Pro League. So I'm a promoter for the IFBB Pro League, and I effectively run the Pro League here in South Australia, which is where I live and where my business is based as well.
Awesome, mate. What an introduction.
Yeah, there's a few things going on. A few things. I like to keep busy.
So how did you get into it all? I know, but for the listeners, how did it get started?
Well, it really started with when I was younger, really since I can remember. So really since I was a kid, I was always interested, like I was always physical, you know, I wasn't really too interested in like computer games or that sort of thing. I was always playing sport, athletics, you know, just, you know, physical. I was always doing physical stuff. And when I got to the age of, man, like 10, 11, 12, I really started to sway towards basketball. So I was really obsessed with basketball and started playing basketball competitively. That's kind of, you know, when you can start playing is, I think like 10 years old is like under 12s. So you can kind of start playing basketball competitively at that age. And, you know, basketball was my passion growing up as a kid, as a teenager. It was like all I did. Apart from, you know, studied as well and had a bit of a social life, but basketball was my thing, man. And I was quite good, fortunately. You know, I kind of came up the ranks in the district system that we have here in Australia, played for the state teams, played for national teams, toured the US a couple of times, playing against college teams over there. And it looked like there was a possibility that I could do something professionally with basketball until I got injured. So my first injury happened when I was 14. So I was really young. I developed a stress fracture in my lower back. It's really like, it's not, it kind of sounds like, you know, oh man, you fractured your back, but it's not really that big a deal. Like a lot of high impact athletes have stress fractures in their back. When I turned 18, I developed another stress fracture in my back on exactly the same vertebrae that the first one was on. And the thing with stress fractures in your spine is they never heal. So once they're fractured, like they're fractured forever. So when I did the second fracture on the same vertebrae in my spine, it was career ending. It was like, that's it. You can't do high impact because you are risking spinal injury, paralysis, and, you know, it's just not worth it. And the risk was, you know, it's not a stupidly high risk, but the risk is definitely there. And it's like, well, you know, you take a hit the wrong way or you land the wrong way or whatever it is, you damage your spinal cord, like that's it, you're not walking anymore. So it was career ending at 18. And one of the cool things with basketball, especially with the state teams and the national teams kind of coming up, is strength and conditioning. So, you know, as you kind of get older and you're playing, you know, at high levels, you start working on your body as well. So it's not just about the skill that you have as a basketballer, it's about how athletic are you as well. So as part of strength and conditioning, I was introduced to weight training at about 14 years old. You know, I started with like body weight stuff and then, you know, got into real basic free weights and that sort of thing. And I think from a performance athlete perspective, you know, if there's anybody listening who has had experience with performance athletes or a performance athlete themselves, you guys would know that when it comes to strength and conditioning and weight training from a performance athlete's perspective, it's very polarizing. You either really enjoy it or it's like the worst thing ever and you absolutely hate it. For me, I really enjoyed it. So I really enjoyed lifting weights. I really enjoyed feeling strong. I enjoyed seeing my body grow and develop. And I guess it kind of coincided, you know, as I was young as well, I was like really inspired by powerful physiques. So, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, Jean-Claude Van Damme, those kind of, you know, movie stars effectively that had really powerful physiques. So I guess there was a little bit of a crossover there, but I really took an interest in weight training. So when I developed the second stress fracture, and I couldn't continue playing basketball, the other thing I couldn't continue doing was anything high impact because the risk is still the same, right? So my physio and the doctors and, you know, everybody who was kind of giving me advice at that point was like, you know, you want to stay active, right? You want to continue to be physical. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health, but you can't do anything high impact. So we recommend that you just lift weights because it's low impact, right? With proper form, risk of injury is quite low. And because of my experience to strength and conditioning, I was like, yeah, cool. Like I'm down for that. You know, like I was devastated that I couldn't play basketball. And that was really kind of like the end of my first dream, so to speak. But on the flip side, I was like, well, you know, I'll just spend more time in the gym. And I don't really have a problem with that because I enjoy that. Like that's a cool kind of outcome for me. And so I did. So I spent more time in the gym. And not surprisingly, my competitive streak came out, and it was, well, you know, what do you do competitively with weightlifting? You do powerlifting or you do bodybuilding. And I guess that kind of played into, you know, my being inspired by these powerful physiques. I was like, well, you know, I might try bodybuilding. Let me, you know, let me see how much muscle I can build. Let me see how lean I can get. And I did my, you know, I trained for and I did my first bodybuilding competition in 2005 as a 19-year-old in the teenage division. And back then there was no men's physique. There was no bikini in the female divisions. Like it was bodybuilding and bodybuilding, and that's it. So it was just, you know, I started in the teenage division. I did quite well in my first competition, first couple of years in competing, moved up to the juniors, moved up to the opens, and did quite well as a bodybuilder from 2005 to 2010 in the amateur league, right? And naturally in the amateur league for about 5 years there. I think probably 6 years. I reckon the last year was 2011. And what I found from a bodybuilding perspective is I was starting to get a little bit frustrated because in bodybuilding, unlike basketball, being very tall is a disadvantage. Yeah. So my height served me quite well as a basketballer. When I transitioned to bodybuilding, I'd win the height classes and then go into the overalls with guys that were in lower classes than me, lower height classes. So, you know, they'd be 5'6", 5'8", and I'm 6'2", and I could just never beat them because bodybuilding does favor, especially in the amateur ranks, it does favor shorter bodybuilders. Yeah. So I took a break. I really kind of took a break thinking I wasn't going to go back to it because I was kind of frustrated with the, I guess, the glass ceiling because of my height in bodybuilding. And then what happened is in 2013, the IFBB developed this new category called men's physique, which tends to favor more athletic physiques, taller guys, broader shoulders, smaller waist. So kind of not the opposite of bodybuilding, but a completely different look from bodybuilding that genetically suited me quite well. And they brought that to Australia in 2014. And that was the year that I got back into competing and did 2014, 15, 16, 17 in the IFBB. And when I went back into it in 2014, the goal was, you know what, I'm gonna turn pro. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna compete every year and get better and better and better until I turn pro in the IFBB as a men's physique athlete. And I did that. I set myself a 5-year goal. So the goal really was from 2014 to get it done by 2018. And I achieved that at the end of 2017 from an athletic perspective. So that's the bodybuilding side. I guess to the business side, more to that point, was when I got into bodybuilding in, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 2004, 2005, that was really when I started taking an interest in supplementation as performance enhancing. Because back before then, as an athlete playing basketball, it wasn't, no one really took supplements. Now they do a lot, but back then no one did. But as soon as I switched over into bodybuilding, everyone was taking supplements, like creatines, proteins as a bare minimum. You know, branched chain amino acids were very new back then in the early 2000s, but they were starting to you know, sprinkle into the industry, so to speak. And back then in Australia, I guess what you could access in the marketplace was very, very limited. But what you could get from the US was starting to explode in the, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s from a supplementation perspective. So I started importing supplements for myself as an athlete to help me compete, with no, you know, no intention of starting a business or anything like that. But at the time I was studying at university, I was training at the university gym, very close, cliquey, everybody knows each other sort of thing, like, you know, real old school gym, nothing like you see now, unless you're fortunate enough to go to a gym with some really good culture, but they just don't exist like they used to. But back then there was a lot of culture, and, you know, I was the guy that was competing. They called me Massive Joe, right? Because I'm competing in bodybuilding competitions. And I was doing quite well. And so I started getting questions about, you know, what's that stuff that you drink before you train? What's that colored stuff that you've got in your shaker? You know, when you're training, everyone else is drinking water. When you finish training, you know, what's that powder you put in and you drink as soon as you finish training, when everyone else is going upstairs to the uni bar and having a schnitzel and a beer? You know, so I started getting a bunch of questions, and people were genuinely curious as to what I was doing. So I started explaining it to them, and they were like, well, can you get me some next time you place an order? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I started, you know, instead of just getting my pre-workout and my aminos and my protein, you know, I'd buy like 5 or 6, sell them to the guys at the uni gym, and then they tell their friends, and then I'd buy, you know, a case and then a pallet. Just real grassroots, literally selling to people training at the uni gym. And then the universities in Adelaide in South Australia, where I was studying at the time, where I still live now, are quite connected. So that spread to the other university gyms. And so before you know it, I'm importing pallets of stuff from the US, loading up the back of my car, doing routes like 2-3 times a week, driving from Adelaide Uni to Flinders Uni to Uni SA, all the gyms, and dropping off these orders of supplements for people who wanted to take supplements back then. And that was the beginning. That was real, you know, real grassroots. I set up an eBay store, was kind of the next step back then, back when eBay was a legitimate market auction, or I guess really auction marketplace. Set up an eBay store, started selling online. That went absolutely crazy because I was the first person to sell supplements on eBay. And back then, because it was auction based, people would just bid up. And there was so much demand and so little supply. You know, I was selling tubs of pre-workout for like 130, 140 Australian dollars back then, which, to put in perspective, now a pre-workout costs you, you know, $60 to $80. So like twice the price 15 years ago. And yeah, so set up the eBay store, set up the website, continued to study at the time, went and worked professionally as an engineer once I finished my engineering studies. Went and worked professionally as a lawyer once I finished my law studies, because those were the 2 degrees that I studied at university, mechanical engineering and law. And then got to a point where the business was big enough that it was, you know, generating me an income that I could live off. Definitely not as good an income as I was earning as an engineer or a lawyer, but still, you know, an income that could kind of support my lifestyle as a, you know, in my late 20s at the time. And committed to the business full time back in 2012, got into retail stores from there, got into distribution from there, started Team J Apparel in 2015 was the grassroots of that. And I guess the rest is history. Well, history's still being written, but up until now, the rest is history.
What a story, mate. Absolutely. I love the story. That's why I definitely want to share it with people.
Yeah.
I know I've got a couple of little points that I knew where you would go with your story.
Yeah.
We didn't quite hit one point. Obviously, you moved to Indonesia when you
I did.
Yeah. That's the bit.
Yeah. When I was, that was quite, I don't even know how you know that. I must have mentioned it to you at some point. No, so my entire family, so I guess the background to it is my dad, for his entire career, was an oil and gas engineer. So he's an engineer, worked in the oil and gas industry, specialized in gas production. And so he was, you know, in and out of, he worked in refineries, and then he worked on oil fields, onshore, offshore, you know, just a lot of different jobs in the oil and gas industry. And where he kind of, I guess, settled, for lack of a better term, was Indonesia. So he was doing rotation work in and out of Indonesia, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 4 weeks on, 1 week off. And I was really young at the time. So I was 8, 9 years old, and my sister's a couple of years younger than me. So 2 young kids. And my dad was doing this kind of rotation work. My mum was at home working and trying to raise 2 kids at the same time. So my parents decided to move the entire family to Jakarta, Indonesia. I think it was 94, 95, or it could have been 95, 96. I can't really remember because I was quite young. But I was like, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old back then. But we spent over a year living in Jakarta, which was an incredible experience as, you know, as a kid, to just have that extreme polarity between how we live in Australia, and in Australia where we very much live in a bubble and we are very, very isolated from the rest of the world. But to have the experience of going from living in Australia a certain way, seeing, you know, the community live a certain way, to Jakarta, which at the time probably still is, but at the time was very much a third world country, Indonesia as a whole, and Jakarta, the biggest city in Indonesia, was just incredible. And you know, I took so much experience at such a young age from so much experience and so much perspective at such a young age, to just go, you know what, this is not how most of the world lives. This is an incredible opportunity to be able to live in a first world country, in a developed economy, and have all of these opportunities. And I just think that, you know, really kind of set me on, set me with such good perspective at such a young age.
Is that because you look back from now, or did you look at it when you were that age, the perspective of it? That's what I was going to ask. Like, was it nerve-wracking? Was it, obviously you're leaving your friends from Australia?
Yeah. I was so young, it was just like an adventure, really. You know, it must have been incredibly difficult for my parents, you know, to leave their friends and our family. You know, I don't really remember being afraid or anything like that as a kid. I was just like, I do have just like so many very vivid memories of things that happened over there that just affected me so much when I was a kid, not in a bad way at all, just in like an experience and a perspective way. And I'm so grateful that our parents decided to make that decision and give us that opportunity, my sister and I, at such a young age.
Yeah. Well, obviously I want to ask you the relationship with Leah. What,
yeah.
Is it competitive? Is it definitely a normal brother sister relationship?
So Leah, my sister, for the listeners and the viewers, just to give a bit of background as well. So she works for me in the Massive Joe's business and the Team J Apparel business. So in Massive Joe's, she is our retail operations manager. So she manages the retail store managers effectively. So she kind of keeps the boat afloat, so to speak, when it comes to bricks and mortar retail stores and the operations side of that. And then she's also our head designer for Team J Apparel. So she does most of the design work that goes into the apparel and the accessories that we're producing from Team J Apparel. So she has quite a broad role and is very valuable to the business in those roles that she performs. So she works for me. She's worked for me since 2015, perhaps 2014, I reckon she might have started. And like, you know, most of the people in the business started in the warehouse, you know, packing orders, started at the bottom and just kind of worked her way up and worked her way up and worked her way up to the position that she is in now. But back to your question, just to kind of give some background for the listeners and the viewers, back to your question. You know, I think we have probably a unique relationship because there is the balance of your typical brother, sister, family type relationship, but then also the professional relationship of, you know, I'm your boss, you're my employee, and the, I guess the intricacies that come along with that relationship. You know, you have to perform. If you don't perform, you know, I've got to pull you up on your lack of performance. When you do perform, I'm going to reward you for that performance. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. But I think we've got the mix, the combination pretty good.
Respect of it. I think I respect of each other's capabilities, probably.
Yeah, yeah. And we know when we can kind of switch business off and just be brother and sister as well, which I think is very important because it's, you know, with any time that you are doing business with family or friends, it's very easy to kind of fall into the trap of it's always all about business. And then you lose the family relationship or you lose the friendship. And I personally have had a lot of experience with both sides. Because it's always all about business all the time, which is just not a good position to be in if you value your family relationships and your friendships.
Yeah, I've gone down that path myself. I've definitely experienced things like that myself.
Yeah, it's that old saying, like, don't mix family and business, don't mix friends and business. I think life experience, you kind of understand where the saying comes from, right? Yeah.
Let's just flip it to the basketball because I'm a football fan and I played football as soon as I could.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, if you didn't get the injuries, but you know where your supplement business would have went, would you go back? If you could clear all the injuries, would you have gone down the professional basketball route?
You know what, man? It's funny that you asked this question because this has been something that I have been thinking a significant, for some strange reason, has just been on my mind a lot recently. And I don't really know where it's come from, but I think I'm probably, you know, like I'm of the age now where the guys that I played with that did make it to the NBA and have had NBA careers for, you know, 10, 15 years, their careers are now like wrapping up. Like it's, you know, they've got a couple of years left at, you know, 34, 35, 36 years old. And that's kind of game over for them. And then it's like, you know, what do you do? Whereas with my career, the way that I've kind of progressed in business is like, I'm just getting started. Like this is the beginning for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm full time. I'm in year number 8, coming to year number 9. You know, and I'm looking at a business career that's going to last 50, 60, 70 years if I live to 100, which would be nice. So, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm not even in the first quarter, and these guys, their careers are wrapping up. And, you know, just giving that a lot of thought, I don't know if I'd go back, to be honest, because like what do you do as, you know, in your mid 30s or your late 30s, and what you've spent your entire life doing has finished. You don't really have any skills outside of that particular sport. You know, you've earned good money, you know, doing it, so on and so forth, but money's not everything. You know, you've got a whole lot of life left to live. You're living 50, 60, 70 years more. What do you do? So yeah, I've been giving it a lot of thought recently, probably because of my age, and I'm seeing the guys' careers kind of wrap up, and I don't think that I would go back. No.
Right. That's it's interesting. I think though, from my point of view to yours, like I still think while you were playing, you might have created something else.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's difficult though, man. Like if you're, you know, if you're at the top, if you're playing in the NBA, like that's your life. You know, you're playing 9 months of the year, and you're in a different city every couple of days, and you know, the 3 months that you have off, you just want to spend at home with your family, because you don't get to do it during the season. So, you know, and they pay you enough for you to not do anything else, which is the other thing, right? So, Yeah, I don't know. I think it's, and I guess that's why like a lot of players don't do it, is because there just isn't the opportunity to.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Mm.
So basketball, do you still keeping like a keen eye on basketball?
Man, I wish that I could more, but there's a couple of reasons why I don't. The first one is it's not a priority to me, to be honest. Like I have other things. We've all got 24 hours in a day and we're all trying to make the most of our 24. And I've just got other things that are more important to me that I prioritize over keeping up to date with basketball. And the other thing is it's still difficult for me to watch. You know, it's still difficult for me because that was my first dream in life. You know, and that was a dream that I had for since I can remember. So like 10 plus years as a kid. You know, I think anybody that has experienced the end of a particular dream, it's just difficult to associate with that dream again. So it's kind of, you know, it's difficult for me. That being said, we do have a NBA half court in the warehouse at Massajo's headquarters, and I do play like pretty much every day. I'll go out there and, you know, shoot some free throws or, you know, just shoot around, do something. So, you know, I still do play, not competitively, obviously, but basketball is still, it's in my blood. It's it's in there. It's embedded.
I did see you miss a bin shot the other day on the beach though.
Yeah, I'm not so good with the coffee cup free throws. They just don't go my way. There's too much wind, not heavy enough.
I was going to ask you about probably coaching, but I probably guess that answer. But would you have went down the coaching route?
I did actually, yeah. When I developed my second stress fracture and I was, you know, starting to get into bodybuilding, I did coach. I actually coached girls basketball, funnily enough.
Okay.
So no guys basketball, but I coached girls high school basketball, and I enjoyed it. It was cool. It was good. It was good. But once again, going back to it, yeah, I don't think I could.
Moving away from basketball then, how does a normal man like yourself do 2 degrees, run a successful business on the side, as you say, on the side, even though it was running really well? And you obviously retail stores, everything like that, you've brought it up to. How does, you've got the same 24 as anyone else. Some people struggle to go to the gym and just do a normal job, but you were doing all this.
I think, you know, Gavin, it's something that I continue to work on. I actually set up my my 2021 goals. I'm still refining them at the moment, but I started working on them a couple of weeks ago at the end of 2020 and started 2021. And you know, one of my major goals this year is to increase my productivity. And that has been a goal that's been on, you know, because I do this every year. I set goals, you know, at the end of December, start of January every year. And it's been something that like I have set as a goal of mine every year since I've started setting yearly goals, which has been over, you know, well over 10 years now. So I think that being productive is a skill, like any other skill. It's not something that you can just kind of flick a switch on and go, you know what, I'm going to go from my current level of productivity to, you know, doing all this shit that I want to do, whatever that looks like for you. Perhaps it's competing in a physique-based sport. Perhaps it's running a business. Perhaps it's running multiple businesses. You know, like it's something that you get better at the more that you refine that skill. And, you know, even now, my productivity, most people, I guess, would look at my productivity and go, you know, you get a lot of shit done in a 24-hour period. But even now, like, I'm still like, I want to get better, you know, like, how can I squeeze more juice out of each and every day to increase my productivity? Just, you know, just that 1%, you know, just that 2%, you know, and if I can do that this year and then add another percent in 2022 and another percent in 2023, it kind of adds up. So, you know, back to your question, it really comes down to productivity. Is, you know, what outputs are you capable of creating in a given time period? And I think that a lot of people underestimate what they're capable of. But at the same time, a lot of people don't want to do the work required to increase productivity. So, there's two sides to it. Is one of my favorite affirmations is I am powerful beyond measure, or you are powerful beyond measure, right? You're at the tip of the iceberg of what you're capable of producing, achieving, whatever. You're really at the tip of the iceberg, but you have to be willing to do the work to produce, achieve whatever that looks like for you as well. And I think that, there's two sides to it. A lot of people lack the belief in the first place, and then lack the work ethic in the second place to actually put in the work to get it done.
Yeah, I think people are obviously scared of failure as well. And I don't know. Yeah, I think more failure.
I think, I don't even think it's failure at that point. I think it's fear of, I don't even know what the fear is, to be honest, Gav. I'm not 100% sure, but it is definitely something that prevents people from doing it. It's almost like, you know what it is? It's almost like a fear of success. If you look at it in that way, it's almost like a fear of, well, if I actually get that productive, maybe I'll get addicted to it, and maybe I'll want to get better. And then I'm going to have to work harder at it. And I'm not sure if I want to leave this comfort zone that I'm in at the moment. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a fear of leaving comfort. It's a fear of getting uncomfortable. Yeah. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. Well, working outside the comfort zone. Humans want to be in the comfort zone, don't they?
100%, man. And then, like when it comes to productivity as well, is I get inspired by people in all different walks of life. And I look to them and I'm like, man, like, if Dwayne Johnson is able to do what he does from an output perspective, from a productivity perspective, well, that's world class, right? That's, if he can do that, you can look at some of the top politicians in the world and the amount of plates that they have to spin at a particular point in time. You can look at some of one of the business associates that I look at is one of the owners of First Form, Andy Frisella, and I look at the number of things that he does in terms of his productivity, and I'm like, man, if Andy can do that, well, I'm still in the minor leagues over here. You know what I'm saying? I look to people who have had more life experience, maybe they're 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead of me, and have just been grinding that stone of productivity for that extra time. And I look at what they're able to achieve and what their productivity and what their output looks like. And I'm like, well, that's the goal. That's where I'm trying to get to as well.
Yeah, I think, well, I've heard you mention his name in the past, but we share someone who we listen to, which is Ed Milet.
Yeah, Ed's a great example. Yeah. Yeah, Ed's, I was listening to, I think it was one of Ed's podcasts, or it might've been one that he was a guest on, but he mentioned recently that he has 22 or 23 businesses that he's involved with. I'm like, man, that's ridiculous. Like I have two, maybe three if you count the IFBB Pro League. And I'm like, shit, that's like 8 times that amount. How does anyone do that? But the proof's in the pudding, right? He does.
Them 24 hours as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So, well, actually, that'll lead on to this one. But you got YouTube videos, you've got your basic breakdowns, sub wars, all of that. Do you find it hard to learn new stuff because you've got that much stuff through the day? I hope you understand that question. So you've got all these things that you need to do. How do you find time to learn new stuff, or do you find it difficult?
It's one of the things that people who are close to me when you get close to me, you find certain things out about me that perhaps other people don't know. And one of the things that people close to me consistently make fun of me is that I'm very regimented. Like my work days, Monday to Friday, are broken down into 30-minute blocks. So I know from when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to when I, turn off effectively at 9:30 at night, every 30-minute block I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm working on, and I know exactly what the outputs need to be. And that's how I do it. You know, from a work perspective, is you just have to get very granular with how you spend your time. Because I do, you know, as you mentioned, like I am juggling a lot of different balls, or spinning a lot of different plates. I do have a lot of media commitments. You know, I run businesses. You know, I'm not just, a lot of people kind of see me on the on social media, perhaps it's YouTube, perhaps it's Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, and their perception is like, that's all I do. I actually run legitimate businesses in the background. So I have all of the responsibilities of a CEO, of a general manager, with the actual day-to-day running of those businesses. And then I'm trying to get better at everything. You know, I'm trying to get better physically as an athlete. I'm trying to improve productivity, as we've just spoken about. I'm trying to become a better leader. I'm trying to become a better manager. I'm trying to become a more rounded human being on, you know, in all aspects, with my relationships that I have with people. So there's a lot to get done, man. There's a lot to get done. And I think that the only way to do it is to be very regimented, is to know exactly what you're trying to achieve, and prioritize and execute each and every day.
So do you try and block like an hour out for, I don't know, ingredients learning? Or I know you obviously you've been to court a few times for battles, so you need that hour you need to focus on this.
Not, to be honest with you, man, not specifically in the supplement industry as such, because I spend so much time, you know, preparing for raw reviews, preparing for sup wars. That's a lot, like a lot of that learning kind of comes passively through that, because, you know, like I'm surrounded by supplements all day, every day. You know, I can't get away from them. I mentioned to you, just off podcast, that I flew this morning from the other side of Australia, from Western Australia, Perth, Western Australia, back to Adelaide. And I was sitting on the plane by myself, and the guy sitting next to me, you know, wants to talk about diet and supplements. So, you know, like it follows me around, man. I can't get away from it, but I love it. So a lot of that learning is passive, unless there's something that really kind of piques my interest. You know, so I might go and actually, I'm reading a book at the moment. I'll show you real quick. So Relentless by Tim Grover. I'm loving it. But I might go, you know, once I finish this, there is actually a book that I want to read. That's a new book on the most up-to-date research on the human metabolism, and the most up-to-date research on how different foods affect our metabolism. So I might go and then invest time in actually reading that book. So that, I guess that's kind of my active learning.
Yeah, great. I'm just going to mention books. What's your favorite book and why? And before you go on, what's the worst one you've read?
Oh, the worst one's easy, because I read it so recently. I'll start with the worst one. The worst one is The 4 Mindsets. And I can't remember who it's by, but if you Google it, it'll come right up. It's called The 4 Mindsets. And it was just painful to read. And I don't think I retained much at all, because it was just so painful to read. No disrespect to the author. I'm sure they put a lot of time and effort, but it just is not a good book. For me personally, I just didn't enjoy it. Yeah. Best book, man, there's so many, you know, it depends. It's funny, actually, I've got like a little book club, for lack of a better term, happening at Massive Joe's at the moment, because I've got, you know, some of my top managers in head office, you know, have started taking a keen interest in reading personal development type stuff. And so I've got them on these cycle of books that I personally have read in the past. And I'm like, you know, these are some of the best books for personal development that I've ever read. So it's very difficult for me to pick like a number one book. I think from a personal development perspective, if your listeners and your viewers are interested in starting to get into reading for personal development, you definitely have to start with Mindset. Dr. Carol Dweck is the author of that book, and that is like fundamentally, because the actual topic of the book ties into personal development. I think that's where everybody should start. So that's Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Right. Okay. I've got a quick question on the back of that while you were talking. when you read a book, does it slightly change? It won't change your goals, but does it change your outlook on other things that you've read then?
It should. Yeah. You know, a good book should. It should challenge your perspective and it should challenge your thought processes. That's kind of, to be honest, that's kind of how I rate books. You know, like if I get to the end of a book and I'm like, yeah, you know, like one thing that I do when I read, I always take notes when I read. So just in my phone, I have like my little notes app set up. And so I'll always take notes as I read. And the other thing I do is I fold pages over. So I don't know if you can see this, if it's high res enough, but can you see all the pages that I folded over? So the more pages that I folded over, the better the book. Because those are the pages that I want to go back to in 6 months, in a year, in a couple of years, and reread those pages, because those are the ones when I'm reading them that I'm like, that, you know, that challenges my perspective, that challenges my mindset or the way that I think about a certain thing.
That's pretty good, yeah. I think with books, sometimes I read a book and it does nothing sinks in. So then it depending on what time, no, I wouldn't say what time of the year, but where I'm at, I can go back to a book, read it, and take more in. I think that's when your own experiences go into it.
Yeah, 100%, man. And you know, there's so much to be said about, you have to be ready to hear a certain message. And sometimes you're just not in the right mindset, or you haven't had the right life experience, or you're not going through what you need to go through at that point in time to actually, you know, you can listen to a lot of messages and look at a lot of books, but to actually hear the message and read the book and for it to resonate with you, you have to be ready for that to happen.
Yeah. Business. Let's go on business, mate.
Yes.
Your biggest challenges in business from the start of it until now.
Yeah.
I know coronavirus is going to come in there somewhere along the line.
Mate, the 2020 pandemic takes the absolute cake for business challenges. If you had asked me this question last year, obviously my answer would have been different. And, you know, I could have pulled maybe 5 different examples of really difficult challenges that I'd been through up until that point. But because you're asking me this question at the start of 2021, the pandemic last year, I mean, you know, from February, which is really when we first started feeling the effects of the pandemic. And that, I think, really was when it kind of, social media kind of grabbed onto it and like, oh, there's this virus and it's called coronavirus and it's killing people. So you should probably be a little bit worried. That really started in February, and you know, right up until now, like we're still dealing. You guys, obviously, in the UK, are in the middle of another lockdown. But from a business perspective, we're still dealing with the economic fallout of the pandemic period, and we probably will be for at least the next 12 months. It wouldn't surprise me if it's the next 2 or 3 years. So far as business challenges go, man, like I'll tell you the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, and this kind of sets the tone for what it looked like from a business perspective for me. So the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, we started noticing our sales drop, right? Because people were not going to, a lot of our bricks and mortar retail stores were in shopping centers. People avoided shopping centers like the plague, like the pandemic, you know, as soon as it started hitting. So we started seeing, and online sales as well, sales across the business really start to dip, you know, towards the end of March. Then in Australia, they shut down gyms in the first week of April. And that affected us incredibly, because running a supplement company and an apparel company, if you're not going to the gym, you're not taking supplements and you're not buying workout apparel. And when they shut gyms, a lot of people just stopped training. You know, you couldn't get gym equipment here. It all sold out in minutes. You couldn't train at home unless you're willing to do body weight type stuff. And a lot of people just stopped training. So that happened. And then also on the distribution side of the business, the wholesale side of the business, we do a lot of business with gyms. So we supply gym supplements to sell to their members. Well, of course, they stopped placing orders because they don't have members. The gyms are shut. So within a period of 2 weeks, we saw our top line revenue as an entire business group drop by 60% in 2 weeks. Then the Australian dollar, the value of the Australian dollar against the US dollar went from 72 cents to 54 cents in the same 2 week period. So it dropped 20% in value. And a lot of the products that we sell are paid for at the point of importation in US dollars. So we had a 60% drop in top line revenue and an increase in our cost of goods of 20% at the same time. So these two things are happening. Then you have an issue with freight, of actually able to get products into Australia, because all the freight lines were shut down from a sea freight perspective when the virus first hit China in December 2019 and January 2020. So you actually couldn't get product into Australia via sea freight because there were no ships to put it on. Then all of the international commercial flights got shut down. Well, for the most part, 95% of them got shut down. And most air freight cargo uses the cargo hold of commercial passenger jets. So you couldn't get air freight cargo because there were no planes to put them on. There's no jets to put them on because they're no longer in the air. And that was kind of how it started. So drop in sales, increase in cost price, inability to get stock. And I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to be. So let's try and figure out how to get through this.
Obviously you figured out how to do it, but yeah, that's like,
well, I think we're still figuring it out. So there are a lot of decisions made. Obviously I closed all of our retail stores. I pulled all of our stock back to our head office so that we had some stock to sell online while we couldn't access stock because all the freight lines were shut down. We're now at the point where as of Wednesday this week, the retail stores that we have managed to keep during the pandemic are all back open and trading. But yeah, man, like it's, definitely not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of difficult decisions to be made moving forward.
Yeah. Is that, would that push you towards a decision of bringing in Australian brands? Obviously you're made.
Yeah, we do. Definitely. We do a lot of business with Australian brands already, and we kind of always have. It's always been important to me from a business perspective and really kind of from an ethical perspective to support our local Australian brands as much as we can. But definitely last year, especially when the ability to access stock out of the US was incredibly difficult, we did pivot and start doing a lot more business with local brands who had stock that we could access. So yeah, it definitely did force that.
Yeah. Just a quick one then, on as business grows.
Yeah.
Even though the coronavirus has probably done the opposite, but you bring people in. How do you select them people? Yeah, apart from a general interview, how do you bring them in and do certain jobs? Obviously, you need them filling gaps, don't you?
Yeah, it depends on the position. It really depends on the position. I've kind of got to a point now where, from a recruiting perspective, we have certain procedures and certain processes that we've developed over the years that now I delegate to whoever's responsible for hiring for that particular department. So if it's retail stores, Leah takes care of it. If it's our warehouse manager, John, will take care of it. If it's head office staff, obviously I take care of it. But, it depends on the position. Obviously, you have to have the skills and the experience to prove that you can do the job that we need you to do. A lot of it then, to be honest, man, comes down to the type of person. So in my business, I have a certain expectation for, do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a fixed mindset? Because if you have a fixed mindset, there's no place for you here. There can't possibly be, because we're in a growth industry and we're a growth business. So if you're fixed in your ways and you're not willing to take constructive criticism and you're not willing to look at things differently and you're not willing to consider opportunities, you're just not going to fit into our culture, and you're going to stand out very quickly as not fitting into the culture. And by all means, I've made many mistakes hiring people who I thought were the right people. And then when you get them into the business, it becomes pretty obvious that they're not.
Yeah.
Another thing that I look at is work ethic. You know, are you the sort of person where, you know, you're kind of looking at the clock and you're just clocking in and clocking out and doing what you can in that period of time? Or are you the sort of person where if I give you a project and I tell you this needs to be done, you're going to do what you need to do to get it done? Whether it's, you know, within your clocked hours, or you fucked up and you got to go and fix something or make something better outside of that. And then I look at, you know, I really look at passion. You know, you got to, I don't want people in the business that clock in and clock out, that are just not passionate about what they do. They're just there to do a job. It's, you know, it's not the business for you. You know, it's not how we operate. I want people who are excited about what they do. I want people who are excited about the industry. I want people who look forward to coming to work. You know, they're chomping at the bit on Sunday night because they can't wait to get back in on Monday and start working once again on that project, or just see the team, be around the team. You know, that's very important to me as well from a hiring perspective.
Yeah. So when you're bringing people in early to do, I don't know, say it's like social media or media side and warehouse, and do you ever go back to their jobs and speak to them and try and learn from them? Because obviously you brought them in because they might be slightly better at it than you, or you can just delegate.
Oh yeah,
you learn.
100%. I am the best in the business at visualizing where we need to go as a business. So I'm the best at going, you know what, in 5 years, this is where I want us to be. In 10 years, this is where I want us to be. I have to be the best at that because my name's on the business, right? These, you know, all of my employees are, at the end of the day, they're working for me. They're working to fulfill my vision. So I have to be the best at that. So far as everything else in the business goes, I'm either not the best at it, or I'm the best at it by default and I need to get a lot better at it. So, but there's, you know, it's one thing that I've been very conscious of building into the company culture is, you know, like if you have an opinion about something that we can do better, speak up. You're never going to be shot down for calling something into question. Because I do have, you know, a lot of people in the business that are just much better at other people in their particular jobs or the way that they see things or whatever it may be. And as a business, for us to continue growing and for us to continue getting better, we need them to speak up and we need them to give their opinions and we need them to let us in on their experience and the way that they see things. So, you know, that happens all the time, if not every day, definitely every week.
Do you go back and learn from them though? Like say your media guy, do you go and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? Maybe you don't need to know that, but as a person you want to grow. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. So was it your idea to do YouTube? Because that's where I first ever seen you. I don't know, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And that's where this vision that I'm talking about, the thing that I'm the best at in the business, that's where that comes in. So we started YouTube in, well, very early days. It was 2010. If you go back to the if you go to the Massive Joe's YouTube channel, all of our videos, like we have never removed a video unless YouTube's taken it down for whatever reason. So all of the original videos from 2010 are there. If you go to the Massive Joe's YouTube channel and sort videos by date oldest, you can see all of the original crap. It's quite embarrassing, but it's, you know, it's kind of cool to look back on that as well. But I remember when we really got serious about YouTube, I think it was 2013. And I remember I went to the Olympia that year and it was the first time I'd heard of YouTube. You know, like I guess I kind of known of it, but it was the first time that it was really becoming, up until then, it was just a video hosting service. So if you wanted to have a video and you needed a server to put the video on, you'd upload it to YouTube and then share people the link, right? It must have been 2012, the Olympia. was the first time that I noticed it becoming like a legit social media platform, and there was a lot of attention there. And there were a few companies at the time, not many, there were a few that were starting to do YouTube series, YouTube vlogs, YouTube informational videos, and just a whole, you know, it was really becoming this YouTube community. And I came back from the Olympia, and I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be big. This is going to be big for at least the next 5 or so years, because it's the platform that's getting all the traction. And so I came back and I hired at the time, I guess he was a video creator, Adil, and he's still with us as our IT and media manager. But I hired Adil to, and that was his job at the time, was just to pump out YouTube videos. You know, we didn't have anything, right? We didn't even know what we wanted to do. But then we started, all right, well, we need to do a supplement review series. So, you know, let's start this series called Raw Reviews. We need to do like a weekly update Q&A type thing. So let's start this series called Weekly Word. We want to do questions about the fitness industry. So let's do a series called MJ Q&A. And we just started, you know, we just came up with these ideas, brainstormed them, had no idea what we were doing, but just started pumping videos out. And, you know, that along with definitely Facebook at the time as well, was the other big social media platform that we really invested to, that at that time I could see was going to be very big, was a big turning point for the business in terms of exposure, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see exposure from YouTube straight away?
Huge. Yeah. Oh, straight away, man. And it's so difficult to look at now because the organic reach has changed so dramatically. Like I remember back then, you know, it's the old tale with social media. All of the platforms end up doing exactly the same thing. But back then, if you had 10,000 subscribers and you uploaded a video, 10,000 people would see that you'd uploaded a video, and probably 7,000 of them would watch it. Yeah. Now, you know, the Massive Joe's YouTube channel now has 120,000 subscribers, and if we upload a video that gets over 1,000 views, that's a good video. Yeah. So just the amount that organic reach has been completely crushed over that period, and that's only been 7-8 years, is mind blowing. But back then it was an incredible platform in terms of organic reach. It was huge for us.
Yeah, well, for my listeners, anyone who's wanting to learn about supplements, I think, or pick a supplement, I would definitely go to your videos. But your videos will probably pop up anyway, because
they should. Yeah. Fingers crossed. There's a lot of them there.
Absolutely brilliant. As soon as if a new product comes out, I'll have a quick look on Massive Joe, see if
it's there. So thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Do you get nervous before you go on video, by the way?
Yeah, not anymore. I used to, not anymore. Yeah, because I do it so often. You know, like it's and it's one thing I get asked about this quite frequently, you know, not necessarily that question, but questions along the lines of, you know, how do you get so comfortable in front of a camera? How do you get so charismatic in videos? You know, those sorts of questions. And it really is, it's practice, man. Like it's just, it's not natural. There's probably like a percentage of 1% of people who being in front of a camera comes natural to. For most people, it's not natural to look at a lens and talk to it and have no response. It's fucking weird, right? But it's just something that the more you practice it, the better you get. And now, like, I'm in front of a camera. How many videos do I do a week now? A raw review or a podcast, sup wars, 3 basic breakdowns, clinical dose, usually something to do with my own video. So I'm literally doing like between 7 and 10 different videos a week. So I'm always in front of the camera. So it becomes natural, so to speak. It's like it's been forced to be natural because you do it so often that it becomes like second nature.
Have you had media training at all? Or have you ever thought of getting, no.
No, none at all.
I always think about media training, whether it take the more natural side of it out of you. That's what I think it would take.
Listen, I think you know, I'm not going to say no. Definitely, I think for some people who really struggle with it, some sort of, you know, education, generally speaking, is fantastic. And if that sort of thing can help, you know, reduce some nervousness, if it can help you figure out how to bring your personality out more in front of a camera, yeah, go for it. You know, I think that the more training, the more education you can get with those sorts of things that just really don't come natural to you, the better.
Yeah. Moving away from business, I'm going to go to relationship. I know you always try and keep it private, so I respect anything that you don't want to talk about, but you give a bit of advice on a podcast. I can't relate back to it, and you said, don't go to a guy who's had a broken relationship and ask him relationship advice. But I'm going to ask you relationship advice. Obviously, you're doing business, and obviously your life. I've struggled with it myself. Last year, I was a knobhead. I was a complete knobhead. I was focused on myself too much, on the business, my goals, and I forgot my own family. I wasn't present at the moment and everything like that. So, going to that, how do you balance it? There probably isn't a balancing act, but how do you balance it?
Yeah, let me just go back and say that comment that you cited from the podcast, based on my own life experience, I would probably rescind that comment and make a different one.
Yeah.
And it would be something along the lines of, don't take advice from someone who continues to make the same mistakes in their relationships, because people who have made mistakes in relationships and have used those mistakes to get better and have used those mistakes to level up are the people who you should be taking advice from, because they've had experience and they've learned from the experience. And, you know, for better or worse, I fall into that category because
that's why I'm asking the question.
Man, you know, like I have, you know, I'm happy to talk about my private life to certain levels. There's certain details that, you know, like I'm not going to get on camera and say, you know, my ex-partner did this and did that, and you know, like there's no point from my perspective. So that's why it's just easier for me, you know, whenever I do podcasts like this, just to say, look, I'm just not going to go there, because there's nothing positive that can come out of it. But there are a lot of positives that can come out of my experience and the way that I've kind of learnt from different broken relationships. And so just to give a little background, you know, I was engaged to my childhood sweetheart. We were 6 months away from getting married and we split up. So that was kind of my first long-term relationship. I was then engaged to my ex-wife, got married. Marriage lasted 10 months, and then we split up. And, you know, now I've met the love of my life and I'm engaged again to be married later on this year. And, you know, through all that experience, I've learned so many lessons. And the fact of the matter is, when you are an entrepreneur and you are running a business, there are a lot of extraordinary responsibilities that come along with that do have the ability to take priority over your personal relationships. And that can be personal relationships with your partner. It can be relationships with your family. It can be relationships with your friends. Any type of relationship, it's very easy to kind of slide down and fall into the position where the business is my life, or the businesses, whatever you're doing as an entrepreneur, are my life, and they're my number one responsibility, and everything needs to fall below that at all times. And if it doesn't, then there's going to be a problem. And that's not the way to live your life. It really isn't. There needs to be harmony across all areas of your life: business, fitness, relationships, personal life, family life, friendship, so on and so forth. And I think probably the biggest lesson that I can give at this point, based on my experience, and I'm going to continue to evolve and continue to get better at this, no doubt, as I continue to have more and more experiences. But at this point, you know, the biggest piece of advice that I can give to people is to be present in what you're doing at any particular point in time and who you're with at that particular point in time as well. Because if you're with your romantic partner, you know, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your fiance, whatever it may be, but you're not with them, you know, you might be physically with them, you might be having a conversation with them, but your mind is somewhere else, usually on business. That's going to be a problem. You know, if you're at a dinner with your family or your friends and you're physically there and you're in their company and you're having conversations, but your mind is back over here with this business problem from earlier in the day, you're going to have problems. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give at this point, based on my experience, is to just be present with the people you are with, and be present in what you're doing. You know, there's a time for business. There's a time for your mind to be thinking about business. And then there's a time for you to be 100% engaged doing what you're doing with who you're with at that particular point in time.
I've listened to that. You said that before previous as well. And that has helped me massively. Absolutely.
Good.
Massively.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I've sat there with the family and I've been at like, not engagements, but parties and things like that. I've just been like a vacant person, just completely thinking about something else.
It happens, man.
I know.
Yeah, and it's very easy. And I think that, you know, the mindset of an entrepreneur as well is that the more time and mental capacity that you devote to your craft, the better you're going to get at it. And there is definitely truth behind that, but there's a law of diminishing returns as well, where you need to have times where you switch off. You need to have times where you're not thinking about your craft. You're thinking about the person you're with and you're involved in that conversation, because that allows you, you know, I like to use the analogy of training, of bodybuilding, right? When you're in the gym and you're breaking down the muscle tissue and you're stimulating the muscle growth, you can't do that all the time. The muscle actually grows when you rest and you recover. Right? And your craft is the same. Yeah, when you're in your craft, give it everything you got. Go 120, be completely present, fucking rip faces off and do whatever the fuck you have to do to be the best in the world at what you can be. But then you have to have rest and recovery time as well, just like you do in the gym. And that rest and recovery time is actually when your craft develops. And then you come back the next day and you're 100% in on it and you're ripping faces off once again. Fantastic. And then you go on and have a rest and recovery time. So, you know, there's a lot of analogies that can be made behind training and business.
Business, yeah, they're both, they can mirroring each other. But you also mentioned passive thoughts. So, like, if you are with your girlfriend, wife, a thought comes in about business, a business idea. I think you've done a podcast and you said about a passive thought, like, right, I've tucked that in. Get it out because I'm present with a person. Like, if an idea comes into my head, I seem to get stuck to it. So, I suppose writing it down, you're probably going to say, write it down.
Yeah, I mean, you can write it down or you can acknowledge it and let it go. You know, it's you know, one of the big fundamentals of mindfulness and meditation is to not try and fight against your thoughts, but to let your thoughts come and go. So if you have a thought, cool. All right, and off it goes. And now you're back, you're present, you're with the person you're with.
Yeah, like I say, I took massive of that. So thanks for that. I'm just, while you're talking about relationships, it's anxiety. Obviously, you spoke about it about 4 months ago that you went through it.
Yeah.
How did that affect the relationship?
It didn't affect my personal relationship at all, because I'm more than happy to talk about it. I think that, you know, a lot of men in particular, you know, don't like talking about their feelings, and, you know, especially with their closest partner, you know, they want to kind of be the man and be strong and, you know, be the rock, so to speak. But I have no problem, you know, if I'm experiencing some sort of anxiety or I'm experiencing some sort of overwhelm or whatever it is, I'm more than happy to talk to my partner about it. And she's more than happy to listen. And she does the same, you know, if she's going through it, she'll talk and I'll listen as well. And I just think communication is such an important part of any close relationship, right? Once again, romantic partner, friendship, family, you know, you have to be able to communicate. You need to be able to have open and vulnerable conversations as well, just to let the other person know what's going on. You know, and then it gives them perspective as well. So if you're acting a little bit weird, okay, you know, what's going on? Let's talk about it. What's happening in that mind of yours? But if you don't have the conversations and you're not willing to be honest and you're not willing to be vulnerable, you don't even give yourself the base to have those sorts of conversations.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you. Goal setting. I've got, you won't be able to see the board, but I've wrote pretty much down my goal setting, how you've done it. So I'm going to get you to explain it. Obviously the listeners get value from it. You've obviously got your 5-step goal setting.
Yeah.
I need to finish mine off.
Yeah. It takes a while, man. I'm not surprised. If you told me that you'd finished it off, I'd say you haven't done it correctly.
No, it's been 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. So I call it my 5-step goal setting strategy or goal setting methodology. And, you know, you can use it any time of year, but it's particularly useful at the start of the year because that's when people like to set resolutions, which are bullshit, and set goals, which are good for the next 12 months, you know, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 5 years, whatever it may be. And so the 5 steps are, the first step is to start with your why, which is to really dig deep and ask yourself the question why you're setting goals in the first place. You know, perhaps it's, you know, you want to provide for your family. Perhaps it's you want to make your family proud. Perhaps you want to make your parents proud. Perhaps you're trying to make the most of the opportunities that you've been given. Whatever it is, you need to really take a deep dive and really fundamentally set the foundation of why you want to improve in the first place. Why are you setting goals? You need to understand that, because that is going to help you when times get tough, be able to really kind of pull yourself through. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to figure out what areas of your life you are trying to improve in. So for some people, it might be business, it might be career, it might be their physical fitness, it might be their mental health, it might be their family life, it might be their friendships, their personal relationship, whatever it is. You need to figure out what areas of your life you're trying to improve in. And then what I recommend is getting a piece of paper or a whiteboard or whatever it is. And literally, you know, I'm a big fan of writing things, like actually with your hand and a pen or a pencil, whatever it is, writing things down. I just feel like it just sticks in your mind a little better than typing or you know, however else you're going to take notes. So write them down on a piece of paper or a whiteboard. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is to figure out what the major goals are for each area. So I usually say limit these to 5 per area of your life that you're trying to improve in. So if you're trying to improve your physical fitness, what are your top 5 goals? If you're trying to improve your career, what are your top 5 goals? And I always tell people to be really bold and really ambitious, because this is part of, you know, the only limitations that you have in your life are the ones that you set on yourself. And we've spoken about this earlier in the podcast, right? Where people just don't really understand what they're capable of. You know, if your career goal is to earn 100,000 in a year, right? From a financial perspective, let's open that up a little bit. Why don't we say 200,000? Why don't we say 250? Why don't we say 500,000? You know, because if you're starting to put, but they have to be realistic as well, right? But if you're starting to put limits on yourself and your own thinking, that's all you're ever going to achieve. So I always tell people to be bold and be ambitious. Maximum 5 areas, 5 major goals for each area of your life. That's step number 3. Step number 4 is now the refining process. So we want to take each of those goals and we want to make sure that they are SMART goals. And when I say SMART, I'm talking about the acronym SMART. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So you're going to have to go back, revisit those 5 big, bold, ambitious goals and say, okay, you know, specific, that's the $100,000 worth of income, or maybe you bumped it up to 500, whatever it is. Measurable, okay, cool, it's quantifiable. I know exactly what that number is. Achievable or attainable. Is 500,000 really that attainable for me at this point in my career? Perhaps not. So that's where you start to, you know, taper it back, bring it within the goal lines. Relevant, this ties back into your why. So is this particular goal that you're trying to set for this particular area of your life relevant to the reason why you're setting goals in the first place? And that's why step one is to set up that why. And then time bound. So put an actual time on it. Am I going to earn $100,000 in 12 months? Am I going to earn $250,000 in 24 months? You have to put a time limit on it, or else it's not a goal, it's just a dream.
Yep.
It's a dream with no deadline.
Yeah.
That's step number 4. And then step number 5, once you've done that, and this is why I said, Gavin, if you told me you'd finish this already, you were bullshitting, because it's complex, but it works. Step number 5, the final step, is then once you've got those SMART goals, maximum 5 SMART goals for each area of your life that you're trying to improve in, is to put together what I like to call a daily accountability calendar, or I call it my top 5, right? I actually call it my starting 5 because I'm a basketball head, and it goes back to basketball. But effectively, these are every day, what are the 5 most important things that I have to get done to make sure that I'm on track to achieving my SMART goals. Now, these are things that are not, they can't be habitual, right? So if you've got physical goals and you know that you're going to train 5 days a week, you don't put train as one of your starting 5 on your accountability calendar, because you're going to do it anyway. It needs to be things that are outside of your daily habit, outside of your daily routines, that are going to inch you closer and closer to your goals, but are also outside of your comfort zone. So these are things that make you uncomfortable. They have to be, or else there's no point putting them as your starting 5. So you set that up every day, Monday through Sunday. You set up the 5 things that you need to get done each and every day to inch you towards achieving those goals, and you go and crush.
Awesome. Awesome. So I did hear you say once you've done that, then 5, you'll take one off and put another one on.
Yeah. So once you've, you know, once something becomes easy, once something becomes habitual, you take it off your starting 5 because now it's comfortable, right? And you can put something else in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll need to get on with that. I've still got a few more weeks of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, man, it usually takes me most of January to do it. And I'm experienced at doing this. So, you know, but I'll spend an hour a day, every day until it gets done. You know, just an hour a day, refining the SMART, an hour a day, figuring out what my starting 5s need to be. And you might, you know, when you do this as well, once you've done your SMART goals and you get to step number 5, you might have like 50 things on your starting 5 for the next 12 months, right? So you pick the 5 most important, and those are your starting 5. And then as some of those things start to become habitual, they drop out, and then you pull something else in. And then that becomes habitual. It drops out, you pull something else in. And what we're trying to do here is we're really trying to change habits and change routines from habits and routines that don't align with the goals you're trying to achieve to habits and routines that do align with the goals that you're trying to achieve. Yeah. And it's a step-by-step process. It's, you know, so many people, and this is why resolutions are shit and they always fail, is so many people think that you just snap your fingers and you go from, let's say that your goal is physical, right? You're trying to improve your body composition, lose some body fat, build some muscle. You snap your fingers and you go from all of the shit food that you're used to eating, that's part of your habit and routine, and you no longer eat that, and all you do is eat healthy. And you go from training maybe once a week, you snap your fingers, and now you're training 5 times a week. And you go from doing no cardio, you snap your fingers, and now you're doing an hour of cardio 5 times a day. It doesn't work like that. It's small, little changes in your habits and routines, and they stack up over time.
Yeah, I think it's too much. I always go back to the diet, and everyone knows wants to start eating salad and start doing cardio. Obviously, both. Yeah. If I do them 2 things, I'd rather be fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people try and do too much too quick, but that 5-step goal setting is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think it's definitely worth a listen over that. What does the future look like for Joesph Mencel then with them goals set?
Well, I'm still working on them at the moment. Yeah, so if you hit me up in 2 weeks, I'll be able to tell you. I'll be able to tell you exactly. No, but I'll give you the a couple of ways to answer this question, Gavin. Firstly, I am a doer, not a talker. So, I let my results speak for themselves. I don't like to proclaim what I'm going to do and what my goals are and what I'm trying to achieve. I just get shit done. And once it's done, I'm like, I did that and I did that and I did that. That being said, in the business context, I do always share our business goals with my people in the business because they need to know what we're trying to achieve as a team. But for me personally, I tend to keep it, my partner knows what I'm trying to achieve, and that's pretty much it. That's the only person who needs to know apart from myself. But I will say that for me personally, the way that my structure looks is I have 5 SMART goals for these different areas of my life. So I have them for business. I have them for my personal career, which is business and the other things that I'm trying to do as a career. I have them for financial. I have them for my physical health as a pro athlete and what I'm trying to do there. I have them for my personal relationship. And then I have them for my private life, which I kind of put in there, family, friends, and all other relationships that's not my my romantic relationship.
Yeah. Just a product over process, I was going to say. I always hear you say that. Obviously, prioritizing.
It's the other way around, though. It's process over product.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm right.
Don't fuck that up. You confuse people.
No, yeah, I just hear you always say that, and it's definitely enjoy the process. It's not the end goal, but I think people look at the end goal. Just they get involved in trying to reach a goal, but then they're disliking this part of it. But yeah, enjoy the process. I definitely take value.
Yeah, man. People. I think Bill Gates said this. He said that people always underestimate. No, let me start that again. I fucked that quote. You got me fucking quotes up now. He says people always overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. And effectively what that is that's process over product. People are often too focused on the end product, which is a year away, and not focused on chipping away at the process, which is 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And what you can achieve by focusing on the process over a much longer period of time just blows out of the water what you can achieve by focusing on the end product over a short period of time, like 12 months.
Let's not fuck any more quotes up.
They're all good from here on out.
Can't do anything without talking training and nutrition. Obviously,
of course,
a pro now. You've prepped yourself. I know you lean on some professionals within there just for tips towards the end. But quality of foods, flexible dieting over a set meal plan. Do you think there's advantages, disadvantages, where your body reacts?
Yeah, I think if it's done correctly, there's advantages. And I think that, definitely whole foods over processed foods. I mean, that shouldn't even be a discussion anymore. We went through the bullshit in the fitness industry of if it fits your macros and, eating Pop-Tarts instead of sweet potato and all that bullshit that I was just so passionately against when it came out. I think that discussion is done now. I think that most people understand that good quality, nutrient dense whole foods over shit processed foods is always going to be a better choice. So far as flexible dieting goes, I think that This is what we were talking about earlier, where I said, you know, the next book that I read will probably be the one on the metabolic effects of different foods. I think there's a big trend at the moment that is towards eating as much variety as possible. So, you know, the old bodybuilding diet of chicken and broccoli and sweet potato and almonds, and chicken and broccoli and sweet potato and almonds, and chicken and broccoli and sweet potato and almonds, and then, steak and broccolini and white potato and macadamia nuts. You know, trying to eat as many different sources of proteins, lots of different types of fruits and vegetables, lots of different sources of fats. You know, there's benefit to doing that for gut biome. There's benefit to doing that for keeping your digestive system healthy. There's benefit for doing that for keeping your mental system healthy as well. You know, just getting your body to have a variety of different whole foods. So I think there's definitely going to be a big push towards that. Well, I hope there is, you know, over the next few years.
Yeah, is there, not going on the questions, is there any other things that really annoy you within the fitness industry when it comes to diet?
I've got a lot. I've got, you know, just because we're talking about diet, I'll just keep it diet related. I just really hate diets that alienate certain groups of food. So, you know, keto dieting pisses me off.
Yeah.
Veganism, plant-based dieting really pisses me off. And, you know, we can have the ethical debate if you want to have the ethical debate, but from a general health perspective, because that's what we're talking about, plant-based diets are just stupid. You know, low carb diets, on the flip side, plant-based diets, on the flip side, carnivore diets are stupid, where all you're going to eat are animal products. Those are the diets that I really dislike, are ones that take whole groups of food and say, these are, you know, you can't eat these are bad for, you know, whatever fucking reason they come up with.
Yeah. That's why I relate to you a lot, but yeah, I'm the same, to be honest.
Yeah.
So best tips for building legs, because I remember you saying that you hate squats. I hate squats.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a wheelchair for quite a few years as a child, so I've got half a hip on this side, so it does throw me off a little bit. So I try and look everywhere else other than doing the squat, and obviously you've got your stretch fractures. What's your tips? Because obviously you've grown your legs quite a lot.
You know, my number one tip is to train them. You know, I just don't think that, especially girls generally are quite good at building legs. Guys in particular, I'm assuming this question came from a guy. Would that be a correct assumption? Yeah. You know, guys just don't train legs, man. Like you know, you go and you train chest 3 times a week for 2 hours of workout, and then you go and train legs for 90 minutes once a week, and you wonder why your chest is growing and your legs aren't. You know, like your legs need a lot of stimulation. You've got a lot of different muscles in there. You've got the glute muscle group, the hamstring muscle group, the quad muscle group, the calf muscle group that make up your legs. There's 4 different muscle groups in there. Your chest, there's 2 muscle groups, biceps, triceps, and I guess you can throw forearms in there. But you're dealing with a lot of muscle groups that need a lot of stimulation. So, you know, train them would be my number one piece of advice. Give them as much, if not more, focus and stimulation as you do your upper body.
Right, fair enough. Growing lean muscle. What would be the best tips? Because I know you only goes in a slight surplus, and the old age of bodybuilding used to just ram as much food in him as possible, and
just get really fat and then deal with it when contest time comes around. It comes down to diet, man. You know, being a very small caloric surplus, you know, if you're in a 5% caloric surplus, your body will build muscle, provided this is based, you know, I'm assuming that whoever's asking this question is training, right? Obviously you have to train. But then it comes down to how you fueling your body. If you're in a 5% caloric deficit with sufficient protein intake, your body will build muscle. if you're in a 50% caloric surplus with sufficient protein intake, your body will also build muscle, but it's going to build a lot. It's going to increase a lot of fat as well. So, you know, the question then becomes, where does it become diminishing returns for lean muscle gain? Does anybody really know the answer? Probably not. But I can tell you that if you're in more than a 10% caloric surplus consistently, you're going to put on a significant amount of body fat. If you're in a 20%, you're going to put on more. If you're in a 50%, you're going to put on even more. So it becomes about balancing lean muscle gain with body fat gain. And, you know, I've done the you know, bulk life diets. I've been there, I've done that, man. And I can tell you that from my personal experience, it's much, much healthier, much easier when it comes to contest prep. If you're a competitive athlete, you feel much better about yourself. If you stay in a very small caloric surplus, that allows you the amount, the slight amount of surplus that your body requires to build muscle.
Yeah. Thoughts on training twice a day?
It depends. It depends how you're training. So, you know, I think ultimately it comes down to, are you getting enough rest and recovery? So if you can train twice a day, let's say in the morning you train chest, and then you come back at night and you train back, and then the next day in the morning you train in biceps, and then at night you train in triceps, and then the next day you train in quads in the morning and you train in calves at night, and that sort of thing. If you're allowing yourself enough rest and recovery in between workouts, between directly and indirectly hitting muscle groups, you know, and you've got the time to train, you know, like, let's be honest, a lot of us don't have, you know, we don't have the amount of hours required to train twice a day. We just get it done in one workout. You know, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing. And for some people it's going to work, and for others it's not.
Yeah. I've got some questions from social media. Obviously, firstly, Facebook.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to an over 60-year-old wanting to build, get bigger, supplements and exercise? My diet is good.
Well, I mean, you know, the first place that you would look is at your diet, you know, especially as you're starting to get older, your dietary requirements start to change as well. So, you know, you don't need as many carbohydrates as like a 20-year-old does. You don't need as much protein as a 20-year-old does. The fact of the matter is, as you get older, it does get more difficult to build new lean muscle tissue. So it becomes more about retaining what you've got, and changing body composition by getting your body fat level down rather than your muscle mass up. But, you know, from a supplement perspective, it's going to be really not much different to anyone that's trying to build lean muscle. So you want to have a good protein powder if you need it to supplement your dietary protein intake. You want to be taking aminos at least during training, if not at regular intervals during the day. You want to be taking a creatine supplement post-workout to help with regeneration of ATP stores. You want to be taking, you know, I'm a big fan of Laxogenin. You want to be taking a Laxopure type supplement to help with increasing protein synthesis. Those are probably the main bases that I would recommend from a supplementation perspective.
Yeah, I would go down the same route, to be honest. So I've got another one, which is, what made you start? Oh no, actually you've probably answered that, actually, because it says medical issues. How do you keep motivated, especially in times like this?
You don't. Motivation is fake.
Yeah.
You don't. Like, you know, motivation's fleeting, man. I'm definitely not one to rely on motivation, because it comes and goes, you know, like the tide in the ocean. You can't rely on motivation to pull you through, especially when shit gets difficult, because by nature of shit getting difficult, you lose motivation. What I rely on are my routines and my habits. And I know that if I can anchor in my daily routines and my daily habits, that is what's going to help me start to build confidence again and start to build motivation again. So that's what I rely on. I rely on a very solid morning routine. I rely on the shit that I do day in, day out that I know anchors me and allows me to perform at my best. And that's what I keep coming back to, especially when my motivation levels are low.
Awesome. I've got one from Sven Fredrickson.
Yeah.
Does he think the bubble has blown on the supplement model, or is it still a growing market?
It's definitely still a growing market. I think that because fitness is a growing market. It's interesting. I was having a conversation on Saturday, the weekend just passed, with a doctor who works in the medical profession. You know, and he's quite a young doctor. He's about the same age as me. And, you know, even his perspective on what's happening in the medical field is, you know, we need to focus on preventing disease in the first instance than trying to treat disease with drugs and shit after people have developed these diseases. How do you prevent a lot of metabolic diseases, a lot of heart diseases, a lot of these things that are killing people, right? Is through fitness, right? It's through proper dieting, it's through proper exercising, it's through taking supplements that allow you to improve your body composition. So, you know, we, especially in you know, in first world countries, we have seen, and developed economies, we've seen the fitness boom, so to speak, which has really been based on vanity, you know, people wanting to look better. Sometimes, very, you know, rarely people wanting to feel better, but generally people wanting to look better, right? That's why they go to the gym. That's why they train. That's why they diet. That's why they go through all of that really difficult shit, is to look a certain way. It's vanity based. That's still growing, right? But now you're going to have this kind of second wave, so to speak, of people who are interested in fitness because it keeps them alive. Yeah. So the fitness industry is definitely going to continue to grow. And supplementation just gets pulled into that. You know, we're a complementary business to the fitness industry. So the more people who are interested in their health and fitness and who are following diets and who are going to gyms and who are training and exercising, the more people who are going to take supplements, the more people who are going to need apparel to train in. So we kind of get pulled into that. So no, the bubble definitely hasn't burst. Little sub bubbles, so to speak, yes, they have burst. So, you know, your little sub bubbles that, I mean, you can look at all different parts of the industry. I think bricks and mortar retail in supplement retail has definitely, I wouldn't say burst, but has definitely fundamentally changed. And the pandemic has probably brought that change on a lot quicker than we initially would have thought it would come. You know, the sub bubble of blow your head off stimulant pre-workouts, burst, never coming back, can't come back because there's too much government regulation now. So yeah, there are like little bubbles that have burst, but I think from an overarching perspective, the fitness industry is just getting started.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, but I won't like make a comment until the next couple of questions because they'll lead that way. But where does he see the market going in terms of supplement type and ingredients? Obviously the bubble burst. I think the CBD come out there. I think kind of it's going now. It's like, yeah, that's burst. I think personally that's burst. But I'll get your view on it. Not the CBD, just in general, like ingredients and that.
Yeah, I think generally we're going to see a move into more general health supplementation rather than sports performance. Yeah. I think that you're just going to see people who are more interested in, you know, how do I get more out of my digestive system? How do I get more out of my productivity in the workplace? You know, how do I just feel better rather than how do I add 5 pounds to my bench press this next chest workout? You know what I mean? So I think that's probably going to be the biggest fundamental shift, is more into general health and well-being and psychological performance rather than just physical performance.
The next big trend is also asked at the end of that question.
Yeah.
You might not want to give that.
Yeah, I think probably the next big trend, and it does kind of tie into what I was just talking about. I think the next big trend are going to be nootropics, which are ingredients and supplements that use ingredients that are primarily focused on increasing your mental performance rather than your physical performance. So a supplement that you take before you get started work every day, or a supplement that you take before you're about to dive into a really complicated work project. You know, those sorts of supplements where it's really about how do we get more out of the brain rather than the body.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's where it's going. Obviously, health. I was going to say, especially with what's happened, I think people have started to look at themselves. They started to look at like their health and thinking, what can I do to improve that? So, well, I bet vitamin C and vitamin D sales went right through the roof.
Yeah.
A couple more questions from obviously Facebook. What sacrifices have you made to get where you are now?
Oh man, time with family, time with friends, financial sacrifices are a huge one for me. You know, had I stayed on the career path that I was on before I committed to my business full time, you know, I would not have made anywhere near the number of financial sacrifices that I've had to make from time to time as the business has required. Downtime, leisure time that has had to be sacrificed because I'm pursuing a particular goal. Man, so many, but they've all been worth it. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't change a thing, because without the sacrifice, you don't get the reward. And I've had so many rewards in both my business journey and my fitness journey and my personal journey as well as a person. You know, so all of those sacrifices, I definitely would not change a thing about. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone starting their business now? I'm guessing she means
in the fitness game, or just business in general?
Business in general.
Make sure that what you're doing, you're passionate about. And when I say passionate about, I don't mean, you know, like what you're doing. I don't mean get excited about what you're doing. I mean, when you are confronted by a pandemic and your back's up against the wall, and the sort of shit that is happening is things that you would not expect to happen unless there was World War III. What are you going to do? Are you going to face everything and rise, or are you going to forget everything and run? And if the answer to that question is, I'm going to face everything and rise, and I don't give a fuck what happens and what the universe throws at me, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I'm going to do, then that's the business you should be pursuing. If the answer is anything other than that, it's not the business for you.
Yeah. Awesome. I don't know, obviously time-wise, I don't know whether you've got a bit longer. I've got some social media questions, and I've got a quick fire round.
Sure, let's do it.
Doing both. Let's do this was off the Instagram Q&As. Do you think accepting who you are is negative or positive?
Positive, provided it's not a cop-out.
Yeah, I think sometimes if you accept who you are, you might think, I don't pursue that because that's who I am.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that there's probably a line to be drawn between being confident in who you are. You know what? Can I answer the question again? Because I'm not happy with my answer. Now that I think about it, I tried to go like rapid fire answer, and then I'm like, no, let's back up.
Isn't the quick fire round? I've got the quick fire round.
No. I don't agree with the statement that you should accept who you are. I think that you should always be trying to get better, always trying to improve as a person in all different areas of your life. I think being confident in who you are, knowing who you are as a person, knowing what your core values are, knowing what you will and will not tolerate is incredibly important. But I think, the moment you accept who you are and where you are in your life is the moment that you start becoming complacent.
Good answer. Good second answer.
Good.
What would
on second thought?
What would be the 3 things you want to instill in your child's life? That was my own question. That wasn't. I put that in the middle of the notes. Yeah, obviously, I don't know what kids and why we won't go down that route. But if you had a child, what would be the main thing that you instill in them?
I think that I would hope to instill some good rigor around their core values. You know, understanding who they are, understanding what's important to them and why it's important to them, and really giving them the confidence to know who they are as a person. And, you know, I wouldn't be the sort of parent to try and, you know, make my child a certain person. I think everybody has their own personality and we're all wired differently. But, you know, understanding who you are as a person and having confidence in that, and being happy to go into the universe and say, this is who I am, and I'm confident in the person that I am. I think that would be a big one for me. I think also another one would be to understand that you are powerful beyond measure. You know, the only limitations that you put on yourself are the ones that you put on yourself. I guess it's kind of almost like a growth mindset and an abundance mentality, where you can do and have whatever you want, provided you believe that you can do and have whatever you want.
Yeah, well, one thing I obviously try and instill in my little boy is just confidence and be himself.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, you do it in certain terms. But yeah, like confidence is just a massive key. I think it just helps in sports, business, life, communication, every situation. I think it helps. You've said that one, three things you'd like to achieve before you're 40, but that's probably tapping into your goals, so we'll skip that one out. How many times do you read a book? Now you've answered that one as well. Quick fire round, mate.
All right, let's do it. I'm ready.
What's the best 3 stim pre-workouts right now?
Game day, harness, red, white, and boom.
Yeah. Beach, theme park, or countryside?
Beach.
Because you're right near one. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Yeah. Best place you've visited in the UK?
Oh, I really liked Bournemouth when I went down there with James from A-List. I actually didn't realize that like the UK had beaches like that and beachside suburbs like that, because I'd only ever been to like London, Birmingham, airports, you know, so I'd only ever seen that side of the UK. So yeah, I'd have to say Bournemouth.
Yeah. Best rapper?
I think it's hard at this point to argue against Eminem.
Yeah, that's my choice, to be honest.
Yeah, I think if Tupac or Biggie had lived longer, it would be, you know, closer. But the fact that Eminem is, what is he, 50 now? It'd be late 40s, maybe even early 50s, and he's still pumping out music, man. And the music, you know, it's not what it used to be, but it's still good rap. You know, I don't think you can go past Eminem.
Yeah. 5 best things about the UK.
5 best things about the UK.
Yeah, not the weather.
The weather is definitely not one. Look, I would say the people, definitely number one. You know, like the opportunities I've had to, you know, obviously the reasons that I've had to go to the UK for the most part have been fitness expos. And, you know, the relationships that I've been able to form with people like yourself, you know, the people in the UK are definitely number one for me. The history, especially coming from Australia, where, you know, we only have, less than 200 years of history here, to the UK, where there's thousands of years of history, I find, you know, incredibly interesting. And on that as well, probably number 3 would be architecture. You guys have some really just beautiful, mind-blowingly beautiful buildings over there that I just can't get enough of.
Now you're struggling.
No, I'm just deciding what kind of comes next. I would say the gym culture. I've always, you know, whenever I've trained in UK gyms, I don't know if it's just the gyms that I've trained at, I've just happened to get lucky, but there seems to be like a really good fitness culture and really kind of like a really cool bodybuilding subculture in the UK. Yeah, that I really have not experienced in any other country that I've been to. So I would say that for me personally. Nutrition22.
Jordan and LeBron. You knew that one was going to come up.
Oh, Jordan.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't know why we're still having this conversation.
I know.
It frustrates me. It goes, listen, man, it goes Jordan like at the moon, and then it goes like Kobe here, and then you start having the discussion about LeBron underneath that. And then in the LeBron discussion, you've got so many other people that you have that discussion about. You've got LeBron, you've got Magic Johnson, you've got Larry Bird, you've got Dwayne Wade. You know, there's so many people that kind of fall on LeBron's level at the moment, but LeBron is not on Kobe level and Kobe is not on MJ level.
100% agree. 100% agree. Winning the Olympia or playing with Jordan for a season in his heyday.
Probably option two, because think how much you'd learn.
I know,
I'd have to go that.
Best 3 ingredients to go into fat burner.
Acetylcarnitine. I'd probably go like a Grains of Paradise, like a black pepper extract, probably Grains of Paradise to be specific, and then caffeine.
Yeah,
as you stick.
I'm going. Yeah. Learn more through wins or failures.
Failures, always.
Favorite chocolate.
Cadbury Caramilk.
I've never heard it.
You've never heard it. It's like a white chocolate caramel chocolate. It's amazing. or Ritter Sport. Ritter Sport chocolate is really good too.
Nice. This is the question that I've been looking forward to the most. Anchorman or Borat?
Oh, it's got to be Borat, man. just because the number of quotes that I use on like a daily basis that come from Borat are a little bit frightening. So I have to say Borat.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Yeah, that's them all. I could probably talk to you for 10 hours.
Hours. What have we been going? 2 hours?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know. Apologies for taking your time, but
nah, it's been good, man. It's been good chat.
Huge thank you, mate. I was obviously buzzing with it anyway. Episode 1.
Awesome.
Where can people find you?
Man, you can a lot of different places. I mean, personally, probably the easiest place is just to Google my name, Google Joesph Mencel, and then my personal Instagram will come up, Massive Joes will come up, the YouTube channel will come up. Like, my name is everywhere, and of course the business, Massive Joes, and TMJ Apparel. Also, if you just Google Massive Joes, you'll be able to see everything: the website, the supplements, the social media, the videos, everything that we do. And TMJ Apparel, the same thing. Awesome, mate. No, honestly, huge thank you. Appreciate your time. I think everyone. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. I'm honored to be the number one for your new show. So thank you very much for inviting me on. No, thank you, mate. Have a good evening. Yeah, I will. I'm just going to fire up some steak. It's 8:30 over here, so it's about dinner time. Oh, nice, man. Bit of red wine, I guess. Nah, not during the week. I don't drink during the week, so just some steak and potatoes, I reckon. Yeah. Awesome, mate. No, thank you, mate. I'm sure we'll speak on Instagram and over the next year or so. Good, yeah. Awesome, mate. Thanks, you. Have a good day, man. Cheers, Joe. Thank you, man. See ya. Yeah, bye.